All right, Quintin, here we are, another episode of the Nervous System Training Podcast. Today is going to be more of an entertainment-focused podcast, so for you guys who've been watching along, sometimes we're diving deep into some aspect of the nervous system training and really focusing, and then other times we're kind of talking about the fitness world, looking at Instagram videos that are popular, and kind of more of an entertainment focus. So this time we're going to be looking at Mike Isertel, the Renaissance Periodization YouTube guy. We've talked about him off the record a few times. He's an interesting guy, very engaging, very smart sports scientist, but there's a couple things.
Exercise scientist, as he claims. I don't want to mislabel him because he's very adamant on get on his PhD in exercise science. I don't want to upset him with that.
There we go. Yeah, we can't give these guys these details over us, but yeah, all right, let's jump in. We'll see what he has to say. In this video, he's going to be talking about Joel Seedman, who's a very creative guy. We've looked at some of his videos. But yeah, he's got an interesting training style, Joel Seedman, so we'll see Mike Isertel's take on that.
Yeah, and Joel Seedman, one thing I wanted to do is figure out if the criticism is very valid on Joel Seedman, because I feel like this guy is always getting attacked online. You know what I mean? I feel like he's always the hit piece of a lot of different coaches.
Yeah. Joel Seedman's interesting. We've talked about him before. There's no one else who really does what he does. So there's not a lineage that he's tapping into. We've got the Marinovich training. Joel Seedman's kind of doing his own thing, which I think opens up to criticism. A lot of it is a little different, but we'll see Mike Isertel's take here.
I'm writing violence today, fellas. I've had enough charlatan nonsense. Ain't no more nuance left in this month. Fuck you, Joel Seedman. And if you see me in the street, you know what I'm saying? I'm joking. Hey, folks. I'm Dr. Mike Isertel, professor of sport and exercise science, co-founder of Renaissance Periodization, bodybuilder, grappler, etc. But mostly, I'm known for talking smack on the internet in video form, specifically about folks that have some modicum of fame and are exercising some combination of well or not well. And today we are going to be setting our laser beam sights on Doctor of Exercise Science, I believe, Joel Seedman. Let's do it.
When we look at all areas of kinesiology.
Already I'm triggered. So just the background of who Joel Seedman is. Joel Seedman has, I think, a PhD in exercise science. He's similarly qualified to myself, except he likes to create really fancy exercises that have a lot of complexity to them and layer in all sorts of ideas about why such fancy exercises are good. To the untrained eye, and absolutely without any kind of surprise, this seems like really cool stuff that there's complexity to it, and complexity is typically associated with high-level results. If they show you how a stealth fighter works, they sort of open up the panel, and there's all these crazy wires and all this other stuff. You're not going to be like, I thought it was simpler. You're like, well, no wonder it can fly undetected and drop bombs anywhere in the world. Of course it's complicated. So when you see the kind of folks, and Joel Seedman does work with pretty high-level folks, you see the kind of folks he's training, you see that he's a PhD, you see that he has a large following on social media, and you think, this level of complexity must be what's getting folks results. And his explanations are ostensibly to describe that level of complexity and make you understand why that his very, very specific kinds of approaches yield a lot of upside. And I'm going to tell you something at the beginning of this video because, fortunately or not, I know who Mr. Dr. Joel Seedman is. I have debated him on Mark Bell's Power Project before. And I know for a near fact, though everyone is entitled to some wiggle room, that he's the term escapes me at the moment, fucking liar, charlatan, piece of shit. Am I allowed to say that? We'll see if that makes through the editing process. So let's find out how many lies we can spot. And don't worry, there will be very many, and I will explain them all to you. By all, I mean at least some, because there's a lot of explaining to do. Let's get to the video.
Go to pause real quick.
So
every exercise that Joel Seedman was demonstrating that was on this YouTube video, you saw squats with the bands on with kettlebells and weight plates, right? You saw guy jumping, holding the tidal tank, Now, for those who are watching that don't understand what Joel Seedman's actually trying to do, if you look at all of this if you look at all these modalities, that they all require a strong neurological drive, which comes from a heavy load, like a barbell, something along those lines, and they have a proprioceptive element to it, or a reactive element, and that's why the weights are on bands, so they can become reactive. Now, this is true. And there's scientific logic behind what he's trying to do, that when you develop neurological drive with reactivity, that actually creates more elastic muscle and tendon composition because of the contraction and co-contraction and instability that the muscle fibers constantly have to adapt to. And that has proven, not these exact modalities, but that concept has proven to enhance elastic recoil, force generation, and proprioceptive responses under velocity. So there's one piece right there where, see, this is where I kind of start to develop a little bit of a problem with exercise. Well, let's say with Mike Irzer's help, because one, like, Jake, we gotta acknowledge that Mike is a good jiu-jitsu practitioner, right? I wouldn't question that. Would you question that?
No. Yeah, no, by all accounts, he's pretty legit.
Yeah, he's legit. He's a black belt. He's been doing it a long time. I've seen him roll. The guy looks like a freaking pain in the ass to try to submit. Like 5'6", 260 pounds. Like, dude, he's a tank, right? That's like trying to freaking choke out a rock. But this kind of starts to bleed into a pet peeve of mine, where guys who are big into exercise and fitness methodologies, and they start criticizing performance methodologies, especially performance modalities under experimentation. Now, when I look at this, when I look at what Dr. Joel Seedman's doing, do I think some of this stuff is as optimal as possible? No. I think there's some stuff he can do different, get better results. But when I looked at just those couple of clips, all of those methodologies have scientific logic behind them. Stability under load has a scientific logic behind it. Overcoming isometric, which we start with the barbell, where he's in like the double flexion position, he pulls the bar. That has a scientific logic behind it. So, to me, does it look complex and kind of silly? Yes. Does it mean that that's totally invalid on producing improvements towards athleticism? I don't think so. The math isn't mathing for me. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, it's interesting how you frame that. Mike here, he's kind of got it as like a truth versus lies, like right versus wrong, correct versus incorrect, functional versus unfunctional. It's very binary. The way you're framing it is this the most optimal? How optimal is this relative to the most optimal use of time? So I think right off the bat, like that's the key difference that you guys have, is you're kind of using this, looking at it from an opportunity cost perspective. He's looking at it from like scientifically proven, not scientifically proven.
Right. Exactly. And Jake, we've already established what it takes for something to be scientifically proven, right?
Right.
Why don't you refresh, because why don't you tell the viewers what you've learned about conducting sports performance studies?
I think there's a couple elements to it. A lot of it is it's slow to come out with these sports studies. A lot of money has to go into it, so someone has to have the motivation to spend the money and the time to prove these concepts. So often there's some sort of incentive behind it, or it's just overly simplified. And then there's all these other ideas that may have some merit but don't have the universities behind them researching them. So it is good to understand what's scientifically proven and build your understanding for exercise science, performance science around that. But there's a lot that may be helpful, that may be useful, that hasn't necessarily been proven. So it's a bit incomplete to just focus on what's already been studied.
Yeah, and this is like right here, Mike. A couple things I noticed about Mike, and tell me if you notice this too. It's like, one, Mike likes to be right more than he likes to observe. Because all science, if you're a PhD, you should understand all science starts with observation. You want to observe things and start asking questions instead of immediately judging things. Because to me, that's coming off as a ton of ego, trying to justify his word over this guy's word, what he knows as far as his intellectual value compared to what this guy knows as far as intellectual value. So to me, this already is a bunch of red flags as far as taking what Mike Isertel is credible. Now, in my opinion, I think Mike's content is pretty awesome. To be totally honest, I think Mike is fucking hilarious. He has a lot of weird homoerotic jokes, which is his thing, I guess. Like, it's a lot of weird dick jokes about himself, self-deprecation jokes, which I totally appreciate. And I think he's generally really funny. And he does say some really good shit. There is some really good knowledge, especially with fitness, weight loss, and hypertrophy. I think he really knows his stuff. But when I start seeing this intellectual sort of challenging of other guys in his industry, I start to notice that the bilateral thinking, the right, wrong, red, blue sort of starts to really show up, and I don't think that's, I think that's a major flaw in Mike's thinking, and I think that's very ego driven instead of science driven. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we were chatting a little bit before we started the episode. This guy, I've seen his videos, highly engaging, just off the bat. I mean, this is a great video with everything, the little zooms in between on his pauses, it's really dialed in entertainment. And the one question I don't really know about him is, is he playing it up? Is he playing up this binary right, wrong thing for clicks, for views, for entertainment? It's because, yeah, every time I watch him, I can't look away, but I also get a little aggravated. That's how I feel about him. Where highly entertaining, very interesting, lots of useful content, but it also just his binary frameworks kind of rub me the wrong way. But I don't know if he's just playing into that for the sake of views.
That's another really good thing to think about, and for the viewers to think about, that a lot of these guys, at the end of the day, the reason we do any of this stuff is to generate content and revenue. Let's be totally honest. As much as people want to create content for free and they're passionate about this, there's businesses that need to run. Mike runs a business. I run a business. Jake, you run a business. You gotta find a way to monetize it. And maybe, not accusing, but maybe what you're saying, there could be some truth to that, or maybe he kind of takes these stances because it draws people in, because people like the confidence that it comes with a right versus wrong sort of thinking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's entertaining. Let's see where he goes with this. Let's see where he goes.
What does science say about squat depth? Let's find out.
Including neuromuscular physiology, biomechanics, and structural physiology.
Structural physiology is called anatomy. Mistake number one.
They all point to 90 as optimal.
That's it. They all point to 90 as optimal. The joint angle of 90 degrees is supposed to be optimal for, strength, maybe, hypertrophy, possibly. Athletic performance is some kind of generalized idea of that, definitely. And I guess it's for muscle growth, strength, joint health, and athletics, 90 degrees is optimal. So I'll tell you right now, being that I'm actually an expert in this field specifically, that's make-believe bullshit lie. That's just not true. Joel's not actually strong enough to Zercher.
There is actually a lot of evidence that doing heavy load training below 90 degrees, into a really deep squat, can actually destabilize and reduce force generation.
Interesting. I haven't heard that.
Yeah, because it pulls the muscle at too much length, and that what I call these global chain movements, where it's like the full flexion and the full extension. When you go into that full, you squat ass to grass, you're lengthening the muscles and tendons so far that the adaptations towards force generation actually can start reducing if it's done way too much.
Interesting. That does make sense.
Right, because you're teaching the nervous system because you would never hit a biomechanic that deep in a sport. Even football linemen, their legs are never bending, past that 90-degree angle.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe in guard and jiu-jitsu, but that's like even then you don't need full squat strength. It's just
nor is it a ton of neurological drive. I think the only sport I can really see that's making some sort of impact is probably a catcher in baseball.
Yeah. Even now they're I don't know if you've paid attention, but they're actually switching up the squat, like the main squat that catchers use. They kind of stick one leg off to the side. It's not really that. Some of them do that, but they're moving away from that squat position, maybe for these reasons, honestly.
Yeah, I heard about that too. So that's one thing, that Mike needs to kind of reconsider. That 90-degree joint angle, there's a lot of evidence to support that. And, if you logically think about it, anyway, let's keep her going.
Squat this amount of weight is a very high amount of weight to Zercher squat. So what he's doing is he's relying on bands to be able to put more weight on the bar, working against himself because he could put much lighter bands on and use much less weight, get the exact same effect for way less work. But that wouldn't be good for a social media game because it doesn't seem as impressive to the untrained eye. And if there's Joel Seedman's good at one thing, it's impressing the untrained eye. Also, setting up this kind of band apparatus would take you 20 to 30 minutes to do. Putting all the weight on there would take you longer than that. And then you're off to the races after 40 minutes of setting up this bullshit exercise to do something a leg press, lunge, or squat could have done for you in mere minutes. Thanks, Joel. So useful.
Okay, so if we can scroll back like 10 seconds. So here's another fitness bodybuilding lens skewing the untrained eye for a performance coach, or the untrained ear. Now, if you look at what Joel Seedman, oh my God, I can't believe Mike got this wrong. Like this is so basic stuff for performance training. If you look at the Zercher squat, right, and you look at the bands, the reason it's loaded so heavy and the bands are there is to force the movement to be eccentric dominant. Like this is not that difficult. So when you have the bands and you go back up, what are the bands going to do, Jake?
They're pulling, they're accelerating.
Yeah, they're reducing the concentric force. Mm-hmm. And now almost all sports movement are eccentric dominant, breaking speed dominant, sprinting, everything, So what Joel Seedman is trying to do, he's trying to create a Zercher squat. He's trying to really overload the neurological drive on this type of movement to become eccentric dominant, which again has been proven since the Soviet Union to improve athletic force generation for velocity. Remember, that is the key context for speed. So Mike is already fucking this up because he's looking at it through a bodybuilding lens and through a fitness lens. He's not looking at it through a sports science lens. You need eccentric dominant movements. And that's why you see all these different movements with bands. You see these different movements with yielding and overcoming isometrics because they're trying to improve the eccentric loading phase. With the tsunami bars, when they do the jumping, that bar recoils, shifting pressure downwards on the eccentric phase. That's what people are trying to put these tools towards, and Joel Seedman is just trying to add some modifications to make it eccentric dominant. So, big miss. This is a huge embarrassing miss for Mike. Like, you got to understand these basic concepts, because now what the problem with this is, there's a lot of young sports performance coaches or sports performance athletes that are looking at this, and they're like, oh yeah, it must be bullshit. No, this movement is not bullshit. This 100% has validity in sports science and application. 110%. This is a solid modality that will help you with breaking speed and force generation.
Yeah, let's see where he goes with it.
Oh, Ash?
I think this is Chris Carson, the running back.
No, what's he doing with that ball?
Oh, just wait.
Oh, I know what he's going to do with that ball. Is this a euphemism for blue balls? The athlete's lifting. He's like, you trying to get pussy? He's like, I ain't thinking about pussy, coach. Be like, boom, blue ball. You think about pussy now? He's like, yes. Oh, God, I am. We're doing some deadlifts. The range of motion isn't that great. The athletic application of deadlifts is relatively low. The velocity of the movement's not very high. If you want better power production, you would do variations of cleans, especially the second pull, hang cleans, power cleans, etc. That would be a much better choice. If we wanted overall strength and development, we would choose something that had more range of motion, like a deficit deadlift. The hex bar is really just a lot of times so people can lift a lot of weight and feel quite good about it. It has its applications, but wildly exaggerated. It's kind of weird space between the weights there to make it look like there's more weights on the bar where there's really not that much weight. All right, let's find out what the ball is for. Okay. No way. Yo, motherfucker got balls. Because, like, I'm not a black man. But if I was a black man, some white motherfucker was putting a big blue ball on my face while I was trying to lift, I'd be like, big homie, nah, fuck up off of me, bro. What the fuck is the point of this? Oh, don't worry, Joel's probably outlined it. Trap bar, 90-degree eccentric isometrics plus neck perturbation training with Swiss ball. For most folks, perturbation to trunk or upper torso will suffice. Thank God. Thank God. I thought I was going to have to get neck balls or whatever. For contact athletes, this version is beneficial to prepared athlete how to absorb impact to head and neck. Joel, you ever play a contact sport, bro? So I compete in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I wrestled in high school. I've seen a few folks play American football every now and again. The degree of force involved in perturbing the head and neck is a tiny bit higher than you're doing with the ball. And generally speaking, it's going to come from vectors and directions that are best simulated while in training, not in the fucking weight room where you just want to make their necks and everything strong under normal conditions. Good side to side, up, back and forth, loaded neck work like almost every football player does is a very good idea. This tap in the Bosu ball bullshit? I have no idea. Oh, no, wait. Sorry.
Okay, again, totally misunderstanding the context. When I'm looking at that, Joel Seedman is not trying to strengthen the neck. He's trying to teach the nervous system to maintain balance and stability out of the equilibrium while his body is under load and tension. So he's trying to manipulate the proprioceptive process between the skull and trunk and the legs, which jiu-jitsu is not a contact sport like football, not even close. Is it contact? Yes, but it's not collision-based. And it's definitely not collision-based like boxing. Like, Jake, do you play football?
I never played contact football. I played flag football, but it's different.
Okay. So in football, so I played some football. There is definitely a thing when you're playing football and you get hit mid-sprint and your head gets jarred and you have to try to recalibrate your sense of awareness, your space, where you're at in 3D space, while you're also still trying to sprint after that contact was made. And I experienced the same thing in MMA, where like, say like you go for a double leg takedown and you catch a knee or an uppercut to the chin mid takedown and your head gets jarred and you have to recalibrate and maintain force. This is a serious variable in these kind of contact sports, which doesn't show up in jiu-jitsu, by the way. I've done jiu-jitsu for over a decade. I've never had my head rocked or rattled in jiu-jitsu. Have you?
No.
No. So what I believe Joel is trying to do is he's trying to mess with the equilibrium system. I think it's called the vestibular system in the back of the skull and spine that help you calibrate where you are in space. I think it communicates information to your body where you're standing and where your dimensions are at. I might have got that part wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So when you're getting these weird little notches while you're under a neurological drive, that can possibly, I don't know if it will, but that can help your nervous system learn how to recalibrate and understand sense of direction and space under load with those small little jolts. So I actually think there could be something there. What do you think?
I think so too. When I saw it, I thought he was preparing, pretty sure that's Chris Carson, to get hit from behind. Football is different than jiu-jitsu in that you can get hit from someone that you don't see coming, that you don't even know is there. So yeah, have him hold a lot of weight. So his balance, like any small motion, is going to create a significant effect on his balance, and then start hitting him from different angles from behind. That just prepares him that if and when he's in the game and he cuts back, someone hits him from behind, his head will just have a few extra reps to call back on.
And he could be tapping them from the back of the skull. He could be tapping them from behind, because that's where your equilibrium starts to sit, in these areas here. You know, because like the front of your skull is designed for impact. Like the orbital bone here, this is all hard bone on purpose for impact. It's an evolutionary mechanism. But the back of your skull, that's why in MMA they say you can't hit behind the ears. And sometimes it happens where you see people land a punch here. This is a really good light switch. It's a very sensitive part of the back of the skull, the occiput area. And so when you're getting these taps, like you could even tap it like this, Jake. It really kind of like, yeah, do it a couple times right behind your ear, give it a couple taps. You feel it really tilt your equilibrium and mess with the fluid in your head.
Yeah.
So when you're doing these small little contacts, you can be training the central nervous system how to recalibrate despite this effect happening to your body. You know, and they're light little contacts under a heavy load. Like that load's not light by any stretch of imagination. It's not super heavy. But Mike immediately thought it was a neck strengthening exercise. Like these, like Mike, not everything is based on strength. These are called soft qualities. Now, Mike is looking at everything from a hard quality perspective, which you should see Mike's broad jump. I don't know if you've seen it on YouTube yet. He had a 5'4" broad jump. So definitely, you know, which I'm not saying like not to bash Mike, you know, he's not trying to become an athlete. He's trying to become a bodybuilder. That's like his main focus. So I totally respect the fact that his athletic qualities kind of fell apart, you know, because that's what bodybuilding does for you. But you got to observe more, you know, instead of just bashing someone, because now, dude, you totally misunderstood the idea of the drill. You're not observing, you're not thinking. You just want to criticize to feel that you're right.
Yeah, he's not putting himself in Joel's shoes. And he doesn't do that in his videos too much.
Nor is he putting himself in the athlete's shoes.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. You gotta, like, I talked to a coach who actually started doing MMA once he started training some MMA fighters, and he told me, hey, I don't know what these guys are going through, so I'm doing sparring, I'm doing jiu-jitsu, I'm trying to feel it so I understand what I can do to help them. Like, that is a big, important piece about like, the type of strength coach you are, so... Okay, so Mike is 0-2 right now on criticizing modalities, in my opinion.
Yeah. Just on that note, and I'll jump back in. He was talking about his jiu-jitsu experience as if it's the same thing as football, but it's not the same. Sure, they're both contact sports. Not the same.
If you guys are liking this, we have way more unrated content in our member section, specifically content we couldn't include in the... Oh, I see. The eccentric is when the muscle lengthens as you're contracting it. The isometric is when the muscle doesn't change in length as you're contracting it. So them together is a contradiction in terms. So it's not a real thing. Try again, Joel.
Hold on, something happened.
If you've not tried 90 eccentric isometrics, I highly recommend them because I thought, and there'll be cool stuff in there. All right, what are we doing? We got a kettlebell, we got titties. You've not tried 90-degree eccentric isometrics. Oh, I see. The eccentric is when the muscle lengthens as you're contracting it. The isometric is when the muscle doesn't change in length as you're contracting it. So them together is a contradiction in terms. So it's not a real thing. Try again, Joel.
Pause it.
Try again.
This I'd actually agree with. I do think so that lady was doing kettlebell swings with an internal rotation, right? Which is an eccentric based movement. You know, the velocity of the kettlebell creates eccentric. I don't know if you could consider that exchange the amortization phase. Did I get it right, Jake?
I think it's amortization.
Amortization phase. I'm gonna get this fucking word right. I don't think the Give it to me one more time, Jake. Hit me with it one more time.
Amortization.
Amortization. I don't think the amortization phase of the kettlebell swing coming back down can technically be classified as an isometric. Because Joel called it an eccentric isometric, correct?
Correct.
I don't think that works. I think Mike might be right on this one. I don't think that necessarily works. I don't think that's possible to have an eccentric isometric unless you have would a yielding isometric be considered that?
Is that where the force is moving?
a pressure-based isometric. I don't think so. I don't think that would be.
I think they're mutually exclusive, since isometric is the muscles are stuck in motion, eccentric is their lengthening, right?
Well, yeah. Unless you add some sort of pausing element to it, like the 3-position holds, where you hold one frame, you hold one joint angle with pressure isometrically, then you go lower isometric pressure, then you go lower isometric pressure. But now we're kind of doing like a little like language sort of nuance, like that I don't think really matters, in my opinion. I'll give this one to Mike. What do you think? Should we give it to Mike?
Yeah, at the very least, I can say I don't know exactly what Joel means. Like, it's not clear, and I think that's because of the language he's using.
Fair enough. I don't think it's a terrible move with the kettlebell. It's not awful, but yeah. Gotta work on those captions, I guess.
If you've not tried 90-degree eccentric isometrics, I highly recommend them, because I promise you, with proper implementation, something you'd have to learn from him, of course, they'll transform your body and your training. Not sure how. Everyone who tries them swears by them. Everyone. That's how you know it's a fucking lie. Guys, guess the fraction of people that have been satisfied with RP products. I don't know what it is, but sure as shit isn't 100%. There are people out there that hate RP. There are people out there that use our products and got bad results. Why? Because it's the real world. Now, we've helped a lot of people, but real products don't give you magic results. If you say some shit like everyone who tries them swears by them, I know for a fact you're a fucking liar, Joel Seedman. That's right, you motherfucker. I ain't talking to anybody else. When you use your body the way God intended it to be, you're kidding. God's like, all right, Moses, hey, jot this down, pussy. Moses is like, all right. God's like, thou shalt not kill. Moses is like, dope, got it, fire. Don't covet your neighbor's wife and shit unless you got big ass titties like this, then you're good, all right. Oh, and like, move like I intended or whatever. And Moses didn't just write that down. He was like, 90-degree eccentric isometric. Got it. God's like, all right, I see you in a couple of years. Hey, get out of here. Go walk around the desert for 40 years, some shit like that. And I would know this because I'm a fucking Jew. And I think, are we postulating that Joel Seedman might also be a tribe member? Bro, I'm telling you, man, I hope, man, I was about to get racist and shit. I ain't even trying to say it. But like, when other racial groups do some weird shit, I'm like, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Shit happens. Jews do some weird shit because they my people. Different standard. The boy get angry. Anyway, when you use your body the way God intended it to be used, this is very well documented, of course, how he intended it. It literally, not figuratively, so the following is a literal claim, brings healing and restoration. Okay? When you operate outside these boundaries, the opposite occurs. My 600-page book, Movement Redefined, also explains in detail. Does the book cite God directly? I wonder.
Over the last 10 years, I've trained hundreds of pro athletes where we've used almost exclusively 90-degree joint angles. The results have been nothing short of miraculous, as there have been 0 lower body injuries.
Let's take stock. Water into wine. Dope. 1 loaf of bread into a shitload of food for everyone. Sweet. That shit Mulan did in that one movie where she like picked up the whole Mongolian army. I thought that was a miracle. Having trained hundreds of pro athletes, 0 lower body injuries. Interesting claim, by the way. Almost certainly wrong. I've hurt people I trained before. Sorry, shit happens. And they all got amazing results, miraculous results. Joel, hold up. I'm going to do this for you, pimp. Nobody done it before. Give a round of applause. Joel Seedman, everybody. Fire trainer. My man. Miraculous. You guys.
No, I'm going to side with Mike on this one with some of those claims, and I do appreciate Mike's honesty. We're like, if you're a coach and you're working with athletes, people are not going to always get results. There was this one kid that I was working with for like 4 months trying to get his combine numbers up, and I don't know what happened. Like we were testing his broad jump on a regular basis, his vertical, his 40-yard dash, and everything was improving. Everything was improving. Like, we had 4 months. Like it's going to be hard to make these kind of improvements. and I only could work with him 3 times a week for an hour, right? So I'm not trying to make excuses, but this is just the reality of the training program his parents could afford. And when I was testing him on his 40, he was kind of like at a 4.9, and we got it to like a 4.7, 4.6. You know, I think he hit a 4.6 one time. His broad jump improved by 3 to 4 inches, you know, from a 2-month period, and then went up another inch after another 2 months. Vertical jump went up like 2 to 3 inches. When he went to the combine, went to test, he scored exactly the same as last year. So for some reason, all the improvements we were making that we were measuring, I don't know if he was having a bad day. I don't know if his periodization process went wrong. I don't know what happened. It was actually a huge shock to me. It was a huge kick in the balls. But he on that day, his numbers didn't go up. And I have no idea why. And this shit happens. You know, so can you make the claim that everyone gets phenomenal results, everyone is guaranteed results? No, you can't. Because there's so many variables. I don't know if that kid was sick on that day, if he didn't have enough to eat, if he was dehydrated, if he really just didn't want to test that day. You know, maybe something, you know, who knows? He could have gotten in a fight with his parents before he went there. You know, there's so many different factors that could contribute to why his testing scores didn't add up to what was showing up in the gym. So I will side with Mike on that. This kind of stuff does happen. Another thing is, you know, athletes getting hurt during training. I had a kid break his foot once doing quickness drills. Everything seems fine. He just landed weird on his foot and it broke. Now he was in a cast for 6 weeks. You know, it healed just fine. It's a small little fracture. But, you know, shit, man, it happened. I was like, damn, shit just fucking happens. Like, and I felt terrible. I blamed myself for the longest time. But, you know, it was like, yeah, that's the reality of being a coach. Like, Jake, have you ever experienced sort of like variables like this?
Yeah. Like, you have to assume not everything's going to go well for everyone. Not everyone's going to respond the same to training. You know, everyone has their own things that, especially with people with injuries, sometimes I've found that their body just doesn't respond the way that someone who's has a healthy history would respond. And and so I will say though, I side more with Joel on this one. I think Mike is kind of like, he went through Joel's whole page, and this is what, like, the lies he found to report on. I don't know. I think it's a bit of a stretch. I think he's like, you know, like the letter of the law, the spirit of the law distinction. I think he's kind of finding things to nitpick on, like, the letter of the exercise science law. But I don't think Joel's actually saying like everyone has 100% success rate with these drills. I think he's just saying, I've been trying this and pretty much everyone I've ever seen has benefited in some way. I don't know. Again, I think Joel's language is not specific enough to be perfectly clear, but I don't think that he's being as crazy as Mike is making it sound.
Yeah, you know, I definitely think, you know, I think two things. One, Joel shouldn't be so generalized, you know, because Joel is doing lead magnets. He's doing lead magnets. He's trying to sell programs online just like me, right? You know, there's nothing wrong with that. So sometimes you are more biased to lean into statements that sound too good to be true, right?
Yeah.
That's a factor. Like, you know, we're all human beings. Let's be honest about it. So I can understand criticizing something about that. Zero like lower back injuries, 0 lower leg injuries. I don't think it's like, that doesn't seem plausible. That doesn't match up with, like, any sports performance coach that's been doing this long enough is going to understand, like, dude, shit's going to go wrong, you know, either by an accident or, you know, it's weird variables. I had an athlete who was experiencing like knee pain forever, and no matter what we did, we couldn't fix it. And it was driving me fucking crazy. We couldn't fix her knee, and I couldn't understand what was going on. Later, she got an MRI. Found out she had a weird calcium deposit in her knee. It was a birth defect. And the piece of tendon tissue grew into that. And it actually snapped a little bit. And this doctor said, like, well, we don't need surgery. This is a weird, like, genetic defect. It's going to heal on its own. But her kneecap isn't sliding properly. This is just how she was born. I'm like, oh. Like, holy shit. I wish we figured this out, like, 1.5 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, and there's bodies are complex. Things are not perfect, you know?
Yeah, you gotta stay away from absolutes.
That is true. Yeah, that is something we can learn. So we'll give Mike. I'll give Mike. He's got like. I'll give him like he's 2-1. I give him a half on this a little bit.
Yeah, it's a little nitpicking, I think. He's trying to like he's got Joel's whole page, and all he can find that's not scientifically proven is a God reference.
Yeah, he is kind of like nitpicking a little.
Yeah,
I
but
gotcha.
also, man, what do you think if we spent half the time talking about actual information and twice the time with these gimmicks, you think our channel would take off? His information to gimmick ratio is a little different than ours.
Yeah, that is another good point. Very rarely do I go to Renaissance Periodization YouTube channel to learn something. I go there to hear this guy just just make jokes and crazy statements. I go there for entertainment more than knowledge.
Yeah, I know blue balls and titties.
Blue balls and titties. Yeah, it's a weird statement to make about a client.
Yeah.
I have a fucking big ass ego. You will never hear me say some shit as miraculous that I'm doing. What the fuck? Large range of motion or end range training is not only myth, but it's counterproductive. Of course it is. You don't want to get the best hypertrophy results and the best joint resilience through a full range of motion, actually inoculating you from injury to a large extent. I don't know. You want to go for something arbitrary like 90 degrees, but make sure it's unstable too. So people get to lift as much egotistically based weight as they can, while simultaneously not lifting too much weight because they offset it with the instability. So they can feel proud of lifting a substantial amount of weight, but also be like, but the instability makes it even harder. So you're actually keeping them very unlikely to be hurt because it's not enough weight to hurt them, but also you're keeping them way outside the range where they get their best adaptations because the instability doesn't allow you to produce the necessary forces to get your best adaptations. Foolproof system of total fucking dog shit. And by the way, how long did it take, Joel, to tie a fucking band around every single one of those weights? How the fuck does anybody that's like fucking 40 minutes of work? Motherfucker.
This is some serious misunderstanding going on right here with Mike. Like some serious misunderstanding. Scroll back. Let's list off Mike's main criticism points. I want to point out the first thing he thought about that he had to list. We go back literally like 10 seconds.
But the instability makes it even harder. So you're actually keeping them very unlikely to be hurt.
Yeah, we just looked at the list and it went away.
It's not only myth, but it's counterproductive. Of course it is. You don't want to get the best hypertrophy results and the best joint resilience through a full range of...
The first thing Mike says is what?
Hypertrophy results.
Hypertrophy results. When do any athlete needs hypertrophy results?
Yeah, from age 17 to 22, and they're putting meat on their bones.
I wouldn't even say then. Look at Allen Iverson. Did he have hypertrophy?
No.
Did Michael Jordan have hypertrophy until way late in his career?
No.
Hypertrophy is the most overrated adaptation athletes can put into their bodies. They need strength results. Not hypertrophy is a byproduct of tissue breakdown, not a byproduct of strength. You can get hypertrophy with resistance bands. You can get hypertrophy with moderate repetition as long as you go to failure. Now, is it the most hypertrophy adaptation? No, it's not. If you go heavier in weight, between somewhere between 9 to 20 reps, been scientifically proven, repetitions to heavy extreme breakdown, neurological failure does produce inflated sarcomere, inflated muscle cells. That's what hypertrophy is, right? That's what the pump is. You're squeezing the tissue down, it breaks apart, it swells up. It's a pro-inflammatory response. That does not equate into more strength, not that much more strength, especially not breaking strength, not eccentric strength, not the stretch shortening cycle. The improvements, honestly, the improvements are only about maybe 25% you can get throughout your whole career with just hypertrophy, and eventually those improvements are going to fall off. If you look at Mike's broad jump, you'll see exactly what hypertrophy does to your athleticism. So here, dude, Mike is just so stuck on hypertrophy right now because he's bodybuilding, or he thinks that needs to be the number one goal. Now, end range of motion on tissue density, yes. Can that improve tissue density to go to full range of motion over 90? Yes, 100% it can. But you're going to destabilize the stretch shortening cycle of the muscle. Another thing Mike is not thinking about, because he's an exercise scientist, not a sports performance scientist. Everything is required on eccentric load through stretch shortening cycle. When you go through these long end ranges of motion, you're really lengthening the muscle and forcing tension, at those lengths. And especially if you're doing heavy neurological drive, that can destabilize your muscles to expand kinetic energy and contract it. So it could help in that respect. But it's been proven that 90-degree flexions yield a higher result for velocity. And that's the key term. Everyone needs to remember this. Velocity, speed. We need speed. We don't need slow. Now, the other thing, this exercise that Joel is trying to do with the bars and all these bands around there, what he's trying to do, he's trying to develop instability under neurological drive, under neurological bracing. That instability creates reactivity to the muscle. The fibers will contract and co-contract, and they'll kind of cycle. Like, so say here are like some muscle fibers, right? Here's one muscle fiber, here's the other fiber. Like, some of them will contract while the other ones get a chance to relax. But then when that weight slightly shifts a couple centimeters, it's going to switch off to this side. And it's going to go back and forth like this. And that's that weird sort of like shaky instability feeling. That develops better activation for the stretch shortening cycle, and it develops better reactive tissue. Reactive tissue becomes elastic tissue. So you don't want to be like a block of concrete. You want to be like a bouncy ball. You want to be like a tennis ball where you can like snap off the ground really fast. So here's another issue. Here's another flaw in Mike Isertel's thinking when it comes to a sports science context. From a bodybuilder, if this guy was doing this type of workouts from a fitness perspective, I'd say, like, I would just do regular loading. I wouldn't say all this proprioceptive elements to your leverage. I don't think that's necessary. It's very risky. It's very time consuming. But for regular fitness, and especially for bodybuilding, no, I don't think it's going to give you the muscle density and the hardness you need on stage. You're best just doing a traditional loaded exercise. So again, Mike dropped the ball on this one.
One question I have, and it's kind of the second point, the resilience through a full range of motion. Where the knees over toes guy, like that deep squat, that's a full range of motion going forward. Where does that school of thought kind of fit into this debate in this conversation here?
Okay, so the context dependent. The dorsiflexion lunge is a strength and lengthening process to do what knees over toes became famous for, healing your knee tendons. Heals the knee tendons. It doesn't improve the rate of force development that much. That you need plyometric, and you need strong neurological drive. I would even like a power clean or a plyometric depth drop or an overcoming or yielding eccentric or isometric force. Right? That's what's going to give you a better capacity. What knees over toes is doing, he's trying to remodel tendon tissue. You will develop some strength from that. But so think of this, Jake. If you just did dorsiflexion lunges and you skipped all your other types of strength work, you skipped all your plyometrics, do you think you're going to have a great vertical jump?
No. It's not fast. It's not a fast.
Right. It's not. It doesn't mimic the physics your anatomy needs to generate force. That will enhance a better tissue density quality, so you can do more and more plyometrics now that your knee tendons are stronger and healthier. Okay. So that's the big difference that people are kind of mistaking knees over toes, because if you look at his other stuff, his ATG, there is plyometrics in there. There's jump training in there. There's all sorts of stuff. His knees over toes is to help people's knees become healthier.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad I asked. I was trying to kind of weigh that.
Yeah, so that's more like I don't know if prehab is the right word, but in my opinion, knees over toes. Dorsiflexion lunge is a physical therapy methodology.
Yeah.
And I always think this. Here's another thing for people to think about. velocity of a movement will dictate the adaptations you'll get. So if you do something that's at a moderate load but a very low velocity, that's going to give you more physical therapy adaptations. It's going to heal tissue. It's going to put blood flow and electrical signal into those fibers, into that tissue, so it's working better. Healing tendinopathies, healing scar tissue, whatever it is, a better muscle activation, less compensations. You take that same exercise, like let's say, okay, we'll look at the squat, right? We'll look at a body weight squat. You go really slow on the body weight squat, right? You're pushing blood into the joints. It's healing. You're pushing electrical signal into the tissue. Now you take that same move and you start pushing up the force velocity curve. So now we're at speed, and you do body weight squats up and down. Now we're working more of a muscle endurance process, right? Strength endurance, muscle endurance, some neurological drive. And then you go even faster. Actually, we go this way. We go even faster and faster and faster and faster. What's going to happen with the squat?
It gets more plyometric.
Exactly. You start launching off the ground.
Yeah.
So depending on the speed and tempo of the movement will determine the type of adaptation. So usually lighter load, slower, healing adaptations. Heavier load, slower, tissue density adaptations. Lighter load, faster, velocity adaptations. And it could all be the same biomechanical movement.
Yeah. Gotcha. Lots of shades of gray. Mike is very black and white.
He's very black and white. He wants to be right so bad.
Yeah. All right, let's pick back up. We were up here somewhere.
Best adaptations, because the instability doesn't allow you to produce the necessary forces to get your best adaptations. Foolproof system of total dog shit. And by the way, how long did it take, Joel, to tie a fucking band around every single one of those weights? How the fuck does anybody that's like fucking 40 minutes of work? Motherfucker, are you doing with this with your clients? Be like, hey, what exercise are we doing next? Like, Jim, take a water break. We're going to be here for 20 minutes. I'm going to set up your next shit. And don't worry, nobody's going to be using this rack. It's just me and you, man. I'm just going to tie 18 bands around my cock, and then we'll see what happens. Yeah, just a lot of weights and bands on the shit for no fucking reason at all. No good reason at all. Nobody's enhancing the sport performance on the margins better than with traditional lifting doing this. But I think Joel Seedman's plan is to do wacky shit, to become known for wacky shit, to convince some fraction of the population that wacky shit works better than regular shit. And because he's the king, he's the domain owner of wacky shit, he convinces you that like this is what you need, and then you get into his funnel and you start buying his shit. You subscribe to his newsletter, whatever he has, and buy his stupid ebook and all this other dumb shit. I'm fucking bringing violence today, fellas. I've had enough charlatan nonsense. Ain't no more nuance left in this motherfucker. Thank you, Joel Seedman. And if you see me in the street, hello. But also we could get it popping. I'm kidding, that's illegal. But if you got a problem, bro, you know what I'm saying? I'm joking, of course. The fuck? All right. Folks, what Joel here is doing is called as engaging in funny. Now, he has a decent amount of weight on the bar. So, what is that? 170 kilos. Pretty good. And he's standing on a Bosu ball. And so he is generating an inordinate amount of instability. The thing is, you lift heavy in order to recruit as many parts of your muscles and nerves as possible so that you can train with the highest level of force production, and those high forces are what give you all the gains. You see, that's why you put the heavy weight on your back for high forces. If you put a decently heavy weight on your back like he's doing, but then radically destabilize the movement by standing on a wobbly surface, you're taking much of the effect of that heavy weight and just completely throwing it out the window, because if you pair moderately heavy weight to a high degree of instability, much of your musculature doesn't even turn on because your body is in a sense too afraid to turn on all of your muscles, really jam into that Bosu ball, have one of your feet slip out, and you catastrophically get hurt, which if happened to Joel Seedman, it would just be really funny. I'm kidding, sort of. I'm kidding, but it's funny. But if you're an athlete trying to get the best combination of strength and the best combination of training under instability, I would tell you to do two things. One is train them separately. And two, question why you're training instability at all. Where in a sport world do you encounter uneven surfaces that wobble? What sport is that? Trampolining? No, still an even surface. Doesn't really wobble much either. I don't know.
Pause real quick. Okay, so this is where Mike is misunderstanding the idea of instability exercises. Now, is Mike what he's saying is like, when are you going to encounter an unstable surface in sport? Is that true? Yes, but let's think a little bit more about this. Like, Jesus Christ, Mike. The instability surface is not designed to mimic the ground. It's designed to mimic the instability of your body. So when you're running, when you're like, say you're playing football, when you're running through tackles, spinning off people, the instability in your body is insane, right? And your body has to figure out how to restabilize under mid velocity into like the next movements. But that's really difficult to simulate in a strength modality. So instead of destabilizing the body under velocity, let's just destabilize the surface, and we can call upon those same proprioceptive mechanics, that same proprioceptive process to start kicking in that directly translates in restabilizing the body under velocity and action. This is not that hard. This is not that complex. Like, I don't even have a fucking degree. I'm just some guy who barely passed high school, and I read books. Like, holy shit. Like, this is like the thinking. Actually, the lack of thinking is the biggest problem with this video. Now, what is the BOSU and Mike keeps calling stability balls BOSUs, and BOSU stability balls, which is fine. But is his using a BOSU what I would do? No, I think squishy, unstable surfaces actually do destabilize joints. Over time, it's too much, especially with the foot ankle complex. For the most part, you want hard surface balancing tools. I would use balanced disc, where it's a hard, unstable surface, because you still don't, because what Mike is talking about, you will get more muscle activation and tendon activation. He's right about that. But this concept of what he's thinking about is that you don't need the most muscle activation in a loading movement to get good quality out of your sports performance. You don't need that. If that was the case, then powerlifters would be the best athletes, but they're not. This is not making any sense. So just for you people at home, the instability underneath your foot when you're doing a loading exercise is to mimic the instability your body experiences when outside variables collide with you in the environment of your sport, like a double leg tape, whatever it is. We're not trying to duplicate the environment. We're trying to duplicate the stimulus that counteracts the environment your body experiences. Does that make sense, Jake? Am I making sense?
Yeah, 100%. When I'm watching it too, I'm thinking to myself, he's calling out Joel, saying, when in this sport are you ever going to be balancing on an unstable surface trying to squat? And he's suggesting instead to use more weight and less instability. And I would just argue, like, when are you ever going to be squatting with 400 pounds straight up and down anyways? Like everything in the gym is like removed from the sport, and so just pulling up those details without really offering an alternative that's more realistic is a little crazy.
Yeah, and then that's where, like, because if you really want to get into nuance, like he said, like, everything that Joel and Mike are doing in the gym is not sport specific. Hamstring curls and back squats, those movements, you don't really show up in sports at all. There's no forefoot training. There's no loading mechanisms for the biomechanics of sports patterns. So, now we're almost I want to try to be more polite and not be insultive, but the lack of critical thinking and observation with Mike, and a little bit with Joel when it comes to his statements. I'm going to give Joel some shit. Like, dude, these over generalization statements of how everything is amazing and wonderful with your program, how no one gets hurt, everyone's fabulous. Come on, man. I know you're trying to sell. I'm trying to sell. Jake's trying to sell. We're all trying to sell shit. But you got to have a little bit more honesty with your claims, a little bit more realistic, wordage when you're doing your captions, right? People will respect you more. Athletes will trust you more because you sound less salesy. You sound like you're actually trying to deliver results, and you're trying to be realistic with the reality. So now we have all these different conflicting things, you know, like making statements about God, Mike not understanding proprioceptive qualities in neurological loading at all, because he's thinking about hypertrophy with every single thought process when he's looking at this, and he just wants to make Joel look bad, which is another problem. There are a lot of sports performance coaches that I dislike personally. I don't like their methods. I don't like their attitude. I just don't like their personality. But I would never let that bias interfere with what they're doing with their craft. If some of them are doing some good ideas and I don't like this motherfucker, I still am going to say, yeah, it's a pretty fucking good idea. I think this guy's a dickhead, but this modality is pretty solid. You got to be honest with the science. You can't lie because your ego wants to look good on YouTube. You know, and if it's not that, then it's even worse. Now you're just ignorant. You're just ignorant to most of the sports performance philosophies and scientific research and scientific logic. That's even worse. You know, that's even worse than just trying to make yourself look good. So this is the biggest problem. This is the biggest problem with our industry. This black and white, trying to be the smartest, trying to be the guy in sports science. And it's turning off a lot of athletes. There's a lot of athletes that think this is a bunch of freaking weird narcissism. You know, it's starting to sound like a bunch of chicks in OnlyFans thinking that they're the hottest, talking shit about people behind their back. Like, let's be real.
Yeah, there's a line in a Hot Boy song, a rap song that I like. He says, "Don't tell me what it ain't, baby, tell me what it is." I may have even quoted it again since I like it, but I like. With any movement we're doing in the gym, it's going to be unrealistic to an extent. And like as a trainer, what we're trying to do is mimic in unrealistic environments in the gym what's going to happen on the field, in the cage, on the mats, whatever. And so you got to find ways to incorporate little elements that we're trying to improve on the field and build little elements into the gym. And it's not going to be direct overlap. It's just going to be overlap of some slight movement we're trying to emphasize on the field. Try to find ways to emphasize that in the gym, and we're emphasizing that while doing a bunch of unrealistic movements, or it's an unrealistic content. So
and ranges of motion. Sorry to cut you off, but and ranges of motion have to be extremely very. What's the word? They have to be very. I don't know exactly the word is. I don't want to say. Let's say biomechanics do have to be very exaggerated in training, in order to reach certain muscle groups that don't get activated in just sports movements specifically. Like you really need to over exaggerate like your hip internal rotation and the way you twist your body to get that glute medius to fire better. Because if you just run and sprint and cut, it's not enough. It may not be enough for that athlete to get stimulation into that tissue. So you have to overdo it. You know, so everything can't be sport specific, but yeah, let's finish this off.
So yeah, you got to look for what actually is making sense and then incorporate that, rather than there's always going to be parts that don't make sense. So if that's all you're looking for, you're not really going to get anywhere.
Agree. That's what this is.
Good.
What the fuck is this? B stance row? Nope. B stance stiff-legged deadlift to row combo with bands around your elbows? And I'm doing like Einstein math equations to find out what the fuck is going on there.
Trap bar, kickstand, bent over rows, and RDL. That's what we call it.
Be like, hey, coach, what exercise are we doing? Oh, no worries, buddy. Trap bar, kickstand, bent over row plus RDL. I'll be like, whoa, that's a lot of exercises. Like, this is just one.
You could stop at 5 or
He's
6
trying to hit the full.
stores.
He's trying to hit the full upper and mid trap range. Like this is not that difficult. You know, like bent over row where the bar slides around your knees and you pull it in. That's really good for stimulating electrical signal into the rhomboids, the lower traps, the lats, all these areas. And a lot of times when you do these trap bar lifts, it overloads the upper traps like crazy, you know, and it can throw it out of balance. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to create a movement, and is he doing it in a split stance? I thought he was doing it in a split stance. but he's trying to create a movement where you're going to get more stimulation out of the full thoracic, out of the full upper back, instead of just constantly overloading the lower back with the deadlift and the upper traps, which creates a huge amount of imbalances over time. Now, I shouldn't say imbalances, overactive muscles. So when you incorporate that, especially with the bands around your elbows, and you put tension on it, like if you do this, you abduct your elbows slightly, it really pushes the scapulas inwards, which creates better activation out of the lower traps and rhomboids, which is a big issue because if you just hit those upper traps, there's a lot of guys who have inflamed levator scaps. This muscle right here, I believe it's the levator scap, I'm pretty sure. That guy is always getting stressed out because of the lack of lower trap activation, and the overactive upper trap activation from these bars. So no, I think what Joel's doing, I think is an interesting idea. I think there's some value in there. And I'm not Einstein.
Yeah, I'm sure too. There's something he saw with his client where there was underactivation in the traps. I don't think it's not random. I'm sure there's something he's reacting to incorporate that.
Yeah, how can Mike not see this? Like it took me like 10 seconds to look at this. Like, oh, okay, I can see what he's trying to do. Now, is that maybe the best methodology to do it? That's debatable. Maybe there's a better way to do it. Maybe this is a way you can hit two different muscle groups at the same time and try to synergize them together, because they are synergized together. They feed off of each other. And when you train when you train them separately, they don't always feed into each other properly. Sometimes the upper traps get more work than the lower traps and rhomboids. These are very problematic issues in between the shoulder blades. A lot of dysfunction with athletes in those areas. So I don't know, man. It's not looking good for Mike, in my opinion.
We're getting towards the end here. I'm kind of curious what his conclusion is going to be.
NTL loop code Seedman 15. You guys know Pen 15, the Pen 15 Club? Write Pen 15 on your hand with a regular pen. It doesn't wash off. It'll be funny. Band cues more direct lat and back activation plus posture. It's important to work on everything all at the same time. If you start trying to work on everything at the same time, you degrade the value of anything in specific. And since for especially good athletes, they need to go to extremes to get better at any one thing, if you try to work on everything, it dilutes the training stimulus so much that now you're probably just accumulating fatigue and not getting any better. If this gentleman at his advanced level of athletic ability needed to make his back stronger, he'd have to put himself in a real stable position, really pull limit weights. If he wanted to work on his posture, he'd have to be doing nothing but working on his posture and being attentive to it, maybe in a balanced situation. If he wanted to do an RDL and to target the hamstrings, he would have to have a lot more weight on the bar, bigger range of motion, big mind-muscle connection, not have to worry about 50 other things at the same time, because it dilutes the quality of stimulus. Imagine that if Elon Musk was having a talk with his accountant, a talk with his developer of various auto driving systems, and a date with his wife, girlfriend, main bitch, whatever he has time of the season type of shit, at the same time while talking to fans at his dinner table. How much do you think he would accomplish? I assume nothing. How much is accomplishing here? I assume also nothing. Safety squat bar and trap bar deadlift combo. So not only do you have the weight above you, you have the weight below you as well. This is what we call needless complexity that accomplishes, I'm not sure what, but don't worry, Joel knows.
There you go. Stay tight. You got this. Come on. Yep. Nice. Good, Chris. Oh, yeah. One more. Yep. Great job.
Word up. Scott, the video guy, just said this could go on for a long time. And thank God it's not. Folks, how do I put this in a nice way? I had two ideas for what's going on. One idea is that Joel Seedman is a nice, well-meaning guy, and he just got caught up in his own shit. We all do. I'm caught up in my own bullshit, too. He's believing he drank the Kool-Aid, and he's bringing people into the crowd. He just doesn't know any better. Maybe. And then Joel, I'm saying it's all jokes on here, baby. It's all love. Please feel free to learn real sports science anytime. It's just tutor bumpa. And Hoff, they got a book called Periodization. Just buy it. Just read that. Good start. There's another possibility. All sorts of intermediate universes between them. And that possibility is that Joel Seedman is lying to you on purpose. That he wants you to subscribe to his community of wacky bullshit, and the wacky bullshit is what sets him apart. Because nothing else seems to set him apart, because he doesn't actually know that many things, nor he that jack, nor has he trained people that are so impressive as to give him really good reviews. Or all those things could be true on the margins, but he wants more. And much like Dr. Oz, who was an award-winning heart surgeon before he began to be a professional fucking liar, maybe Joel's getting into that game. If that's true, come on, Joel. Stop. But if you don't want to stop, we gonna make fun of you all the way through the shit. So the rating here on 3, Joel gets a 12 out of 10. On actual value, it's a -5 out of 600. And I'm gonna go slit my wrists. See you guys never. All right, that was fun, folks. If you want more,
All right, Quintin, what's your end of the video breakdown? How'd you compare?
But yeah, I think Joel's I think he's trying to do a lot of experimentation, and that experimentation has a byproduct of coming off difference, which can lead to more sales. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I really don't. I think the more you try to experiment, the more you innovate. That's gonna create better modalities in time. And you might have some bad takes, you might have some mistakes, which is just a part of being a scientist. It's part of the game. We didn't get the nuclear bomb right the first time. We didn't fucking get the VHS player right the first time. It took a couple of iterations. So, no, I think when you look at Joel's movements, do they look wacky? Yes. Can you see the scientific logic or the sports performance logic behind it? Yeah, I can also see it too. And I don't even really like Joel's modalities. I think a lot of these modalities are not ideal. I think he's making a lot of mistakes, or he's using a lot of tools that are a little bit little off. But I like the fact that Joel's trying. Unlike someone like Mike, which I like Mike too. He's a Michigander just like me. He's a jiu-jitsu guy just like me. I respect Mike. But at the same time, Mike does zero scientific research or scientific application on his own time. Mike actually sells more than any of us. Like, he makes the most amount of money more than all of us. So you can't say, like, we're just being clickbaity sales. We're trying to push people into the sales funnel. Like, Mike, this YouTube video pushes people into your sales funnel. You're doing what you're claiming he's doing, but more, because you're a millionaire. And you got a lot of things wrong, or incorrect, I should say, or misunderstood. I don't like to look at things in black and white either, but you misunderstood a lot of the concepts, which is going to directly lead to sales for you. Like, bro, calm down. Let's live in reality a little bit and stop trying to be right, because for whatever reason, you feel the need to be right all the time. It's not about being right. It's about how to deliver accurate information, and see what happens. Let's see what happens with Joel athlete. Give it some time. Give it a couple of years. If his athletes are doing better, there's something about that. There's new discoveries being made all the time. We don't know everything. So that's where I kind of conclude it for me.
Yeah. The only way to know for real is if they do influencer boxer match. So that's what I'm rooting for.
I would like to see. I would take Mike on an influencer boxing match. I don't know if I have enough fame though. But yeah, man, sign me up for one of those.
Yeah, I'd buy a $20 pay-per-view of that for sure.
Thanks, Jake.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. And for everyone who's still watching, keep us in the loop. Let us know what you think about this type of episode where we're diving deep. But let us know what you're getting the most value out of, since we're trying different things here. But yeah, I thought this was a fun episode to go through and look at these two guys.
Yeah, it was kind of fun. It was something different for us to do.
Yeah. Well, everyone who's still with us, thank you much. Remember, like, comment, subscribe, send it to a friend. We appreciate you. Send us your videos, questions, and we will keep adding them to the queue.
Yes, sir.
Thank you much.